Well, the British were in heavy debt, and King George was looking for a way to raise money. So he got George Grenville, his prime minister, to implement Stamp Act, the Sugar Act, as well as many other taxes. The colonists were only paying 3% taxes at the time, and the actual British citizens were paying 25%. But unfortunately, they were taxing all kinds of items and forcing these taxes upon the people. And they didn't want to do these things. The colonists were totally against it, and they were rebelling against it. And that's what really started, was the beginning of the revolution. The Stamp Act was repealed and never was put in place. So they ended up having to implement the Townshend Act. Now, the Townshend Act had some secret taxes on imports. And what the British did is they basically put items out on the market, and they flooded the market with items like tea in order to lower their prices, and then they raised the prices against the colonialists. And the colonialists were paying these taxes on imports, so there was a lot of smuggling that started at the time, and that's another way that the colonialists began to rebel as well. So because of the Quarterly Act, there was a lot of animosity between the colonists and between the British soldiers. The British soldiers were taking advantage of the Quarterly Act by not paying for services and staying places for free and really abusing their rights, depending on the colonists to take care of their health and welfare and lodging. And the colonists resented this fact, and in fact there was an argument that broke out in Boston, and there was a lot of individuals who got in a fight. The colonists were throwing snowballs, they were throwing stones, they were spitting on the soldiers, and the soldiers got in a circle and began firing on the colonists, and 4 to 5 colonists were killed as a part of this, and this became the Boston Massacre. And this was a turning point when the colonists realized that these particular soldiers who supposedly helped them during the prior wars with the French and the Indians now were becoming a burden, and they saw this as an opportunity to gain public opinion against the British soldiers. So eventually the Sons of Liberty took this as an advantage to them, and they decided to basically exaggerate the number of people that were killed during the massacre. And they put together a publication. Paul Revere was he was a master etcher, and they put together a publication that they spread around town that basically exaggerated the number of individuals that were massacred. And this became a cry call for the Sons of Liberty, and this began a massive amount of support for anti-British sentiment. So as a result of the Tea Act, the Sons of Liberty got together and they decided that they would dress up as Indians, and they would go into the harbor and dump a bunch of tea off of the British ships and the merchant ships into the Boston harbor. And this was done because of the crackdown on smuggling and the overpriced tea that the colonists were being forced to pay as a part of the Tea Act. So then the Intolerable Acts were put down after the Boston Tea Party, and these were very unfair acts. They took away their ability to operate their port. They closed the port down in Boston. They also took away their ability to govern. They put British rule only in Massachusetts, so that colony was completely controlled by the British. And they also took away their rights to justice under the Administrative Justice Act, which was really the worst one, so that they could not hold any British citizens accountable for anything that they had done wrongly to them, and enforced the colonists to leave the country in order to seek justice against British citizens. And George Washington referred to this as the Murder Act. So with their grievances against King George III, they are already at war with King George. and the colonialists decided that they would create the Declaration of Independence, and they wrote that John Adams was pushing for the Declaration of Independence, and he asked Thomas Jefferson to write it, and they put it together, and they ratified it on July 4th, 1776. And basically they were calling for the independence against all British rule and the creation of 13 individual sovereign states. And this was originally ratified on July 4th, but actually signed a month later on August 2nd. And that was the beginning of what we have now for our sovereignty as states in the United States today, as well as sovereignty of our nation from British rule. Hi, my name is Scott Ricard. I'm a former American intelligence linguist, and I do a lot of international interviews for geopolitical, military, and international intelligence affairs.